Is it possible to write an 18-page white paper in about 30 minutes? Welcome back to the Idea Supply Chain, where we take a look at where ideas come from and what makes those ideas valuable. In today's video, I wanted to share a little bit about my AI workflows because as I was demoing them to a friend of mine the other night, he was blown away. And I realized that I'm doing some things that most people don't even know are possible. And so when I started with the question, is it possible to write an 18-page white paper in 30 minutes? The answer is really, it depends, but technically, yes. And that's exactly what I ended up doing because I wanted to create a white paper that helped me sell what I'm offering. So I talked in the video last week about having to really change my mindset around selling. I was trying to sell myself on the price that I wanted to charge versus selling clients on the value that I was able to provide. And so since I've shifted that mindset, I've been out trying to sell. And I'll be honest, it's not quite gone as well as I'd hoped, but I've had a lot of progress in it. And so one of the things that I started doing was I managed to identify, first of all, who I was selling to. And then I promptly changed it. And I keep going back and forth. But the group that I really want to sell to are creators. Because I see so much value in helping creators scale their businesses. Okay. AI has a great opportunity to do that. And so I desperately want to help creators scale. However, turns out that's a harder sell because creators don't view themselves as a scalable business. They focus on their creativity. They've got their systems in place that help them keep their heads above water. They're not looking to scale necessarily. And they view AI as a threat. That's a little tough to overcome. So then I started looking at who are creators who don't identify as creators. People doing the same thing and trying to solve the same problem, but without this mental limitation. And I came up with agency owners. Because agency owners, a lot of times, will create a lot of content to bring inbound traffic in, and then they vet them, bring them on as clients, etc. However, there's a lot of content there. People have a hard time sifting through all of it, necessarily understanding it. And a lot of clients may not be clients when they discover the agency. Maybe they're just starting to ask those questions. They're starting to build that awareness, right? And so one of the things that I was looking at is like, okay, well, I've talked about offering chatbots to creators as a way to offer an interface into their content in a very beneficial way. What if I shifted the focus to agency owners and then, try to do the same thing? Get the clients before they're ready to be clients. And, once you have that trust, bring them in, give them a chatbot that they can talk to, work with, figure stuff out, and then start building that relationship, bringing in content where it makes sense, things like that. I do think that's probably the right group to sell to for now. They're just an easier sell than creators, and frankly, got to start selling somewhere. And agency owners are going to be able to most easily see the value because it's a very similar model that they're already using. You start an agency and you solve a specific problem with very specific knowledge. I'm an email marketing agency. We do email marketing. We are experts in email marketing. When you're an expert in something, that's a great opportunity for a chatbot because for an agency, a lot of times you'll bring in another marketer and teach them your style of email marketing. And this helps you scale. You scale through hiring. You take your knowledge, you give it to people you hire, and then they, in turn, implement that knowledge for clients. You scale your people, you scale your clients, you scale your agency. The chatbot makes this really interesting because instead of scaling your knowledge with people, you can scale your knowledge with a chatbot. And you can actually give a chatbot to potential future clients because it's a lot cheaper than giving them access to one of your employees. And you don't actually need to have a chatbot with 100% knowledge. If you have a chatbot with 80% knowledge that you can provide for 20% of the cost, or probably even less, suddenly you're providing a hugely outsized value to that potential client. As they grow, they're ready to expand. They believe in what you're offering because you've given them something that has helped them get to where they want to go. And now they're ready for your help as an agency. Boom. That is another dimension of scale. And depending on the scale of the agency, you can either provide the chatbot for free or even have it as a smaller subscription product. It could go from being like a cost center to a profit center in terms of, trying to provide lead magnets versus smaller, more scalable services. This is where I think there's a lot of real power here. But again, I want to give this to creators because the way I look at it, creators are like an agency of one. A lot of creators have all of this knowledge and they don't want to hire people. In fact, a lot of them put off hiring way too long. And they're trying to do everything themselves because that's what they've been doing for so long. That's what they're used to. They don't believe in the scalability of their business. So they don't try to scale. And maybe they don't know how to hire. Where do you even start? A lot of complexity there. A chatbot doesn't have that same level of complexity. And there's very, very low training cost. I can take care of the training. The creators don't need to train. And then again, it's like having an employee that you can multiply and hand out to people that's almost as good as you are. Not quite, but most clients who aren't ready to be clients yet can't tell the difference between 80% and 100%. Give them the chatbot that's 80% of the way there, you're 80% of the way beyond where they currently are because they're at the beginning. They have no idea. One of the things I truly believe in is that people are going to start going less and less to things like Google or even social media for information because they don't know who to trust. There's so much crap out there, and a lot of it's AI generated. Again, now AI is the enemy. I don't want AI to be the enemy. I want AI to help creators scale. Enter the white paper. Sorry, had to come back to it, but I wanted to give you enough context to understand, why am I writing a white paper? What does it have to do with anything? So, as I've been fighting through this all weekend, one of the things I saw was a blog post by one of my favorite creators. Subscribe to his newsletter. It comes in, I read it every Sunday. It's Creator Science, Jay Klaus. And in it, he's talking about the struggle he's facing. He's got a high ticket offer, like an agency. In his case, it's a high ticket community, the lab. It's capped at a number of members. But 80%, 87% of his audience isn't ready to be in the lab. They're not eligible. They're not at the right size. So he's got this large audience. 87% aren't available for him to bring into this high ticket offer. And so he was kind of talking it out, brainstorming about what he could possibly do. And so I ended up writing about it this morning and talking about, hey, here's how I would approach this because, I think this is a great opportunity to introduce a chatbot because what it does is it builds this relationship with the audience members. It allows the creator to scale themselves without actually scaling themselves. They can be there without being there. And so once you've developed trust with an audience, instead of having them try to go to your website and search through stuff and find what they're looking for, or go to the podcast and scan through, if you give them a chatbot, first of all, you can answer very simple questions, very basic things. And if they want to learn more, you can point them in the direction of your content. Suddenly, it's like the rest of the world doesn't exist. The only world in front of your audience member is yours, because it's the one you've given them. And then, one of the things you don't have to do is you don't have to have all the context in what you're sharing. It's hard. One of the things Jay talked about was like he's got this Creator HQ product. It's like a Notion workspace with all of these detailed things that he can sell. It's a product, but it takes time and effort. He said he should probably be marketing it more, because it's something that the 87% that's not eligible for the lab could use, but aren't. And so he's got a bunch of his audience that just aren't even aware, because they haven't been paying attention at the one time he was talking about that. So what do you do? Again, this is where the chatbot comes in handy, because it can talk about your products that you have available without you being involved. And I recorded a brief Loom video and uploaded it to Twitter to kind of showcase hey, here's a chatbot I quickly created. And then, I asked a question about what is the lab? And, the chatbot that I had trained on Jay's website, I did a quick scrape over it and, pulled in all this information and said, hey, this is what you are, this is what you know, and so on. And then I showed it in comparison to GPT and Claude, and showcase hey, in this case, you can give very, very specific answers based on what you're offering. Now, I took this whole thing and I threw it into Claude, because I was like, this is the problem I want to solve. That's the one I'm passionate about. Help me figure out how to solve this. So I threw all that in and I said, okay, here's Jay's problem. I gave Claude the newsletter, and I gave Claude the transcript of a podcast conversation that Jay had with a friend of his. And I said, great. Jay here is my ideal customer profile, my ICP. But I want to abstract Jay out of it. Jay is a very busy guy. He's got a kid on the way. I'm thinking that he's not going to be a client, regardless of how much I would love to have him as one. Maybe someday. We'll see. But he's the ideal client. So let's create a profile based on that, right? And so I asked Claude to create an ICP for me, and then outline the problems that this ICP faces, the places that this ICP will be looking for solutions, and what are some content marketing strategies to connect with this ICP. And it had all sorts of options, but one that stood out to me was a white paper. Cool. I've always kind of wanted to write a white paper. I understand the value in it. It's a more technical, more lengthy document, but I haven't really gotten to write one because I'm ADHD as shit. And a white paper seems like a very daunting thing. And what do I write a white paper on? And in all of this, I said, okay, Claude, help me write a white paper. Where do I start? And it started helping me write a white paper that is focused on showing creators how to scale with AI. Perfect. This is helping me help creators overcome this whole mindset shift of viewing AI as the enemy to viewing AI as an ally. And so I ended up using Claude to workshop and generate what ended up being an 18-page white paper in about 30 minutes. But there's the caveat that this is the first draft of the white paper. It's not a complete one. And that's why I kind of said it depends as to whether or not you can really generate one. But you can generate an 18-page white paper that is pretty good. But it's not going to be complete. But it gives me something to start with. It gets me to that first draft. And now I can tweak and modify it And so this is actually another thing I wanted to share with how I use Claude, because there's a marketer that I've have followed for a while. I actually interviewed him for my first podcast, How to Scale Yourself, a couple of years ago at this point, um, named Kalen Huntress. And at one point, he had put a webinar on of how to create an effective white paper. He does a lot of stuff around personal branding, and white papers are a great way to grow your personal brand. And I had signed up for the webinar, couldn't make it live, but I had access to the recording. So I did a search, found the webinar, started watching it. But then I was like, man, I should just like take this and give it to Claude, because one of the things that it came with was this worksheet. And I was like, well, I have the white paper. Like, why am I trying to answer this worksheet? Hey, Claude, here's the transcript of this webinar. Use it to start generating the answers to these questions. Hey, what's my value proposition? My audience, what objections am I overcoming? That sort of thing. And so I started extracting out the pieces of the white paper from the one I had generated and putting it into this format that Kalen recommended as an expert in white papers. And so, I started off with this basic format, but now I'm able to put it into something more structured because I'm bringing in the knowledge of experts. And again, this is why content like based AI, I think, is so, so important. I've identified people that I already trust, creators that I trust, right? And I'm using their content to guide what I'm doing, which means I don't have to figure out how to translate all of this information from the content that I read and, absorb it into like my brain and then process it and output it into words. I can outsource that part to the AI. But it's the direction of what information is valuable that I need to focus on. And so I pull that in, and then I can start structuring things according to that. And that's where AI gets so, so powerful. And it's so much time being saved because I've completely shifted the way I've worked. I don't need to learn everything. I need to know who knows what so I can pull it in. And it's like having an infinite army of employees at my beck and call, because there are these creators who have created all of this super valuable content that all I need to know is like where to go to pull that in and then figure out how to throw it into, the given project I'm working on with Claude. Man, there's so much time being saved there. And that's what I want to give to creators. I want creators to feel that. But it's going to take some time to get there. And so all I can do is I can keep showing what's possible and doing that because there's a ton of value there. And maybe creators will start going, oh, yeah, I see what he's doing there. Oh, hey, he's got this white paper that actually does understand the problems that I'm facing, does understand the fears that I have around, what AI is, possibly doing to content. It's creating a bunch of noise. It's doing all of these negative things. But then he also offers a solution here. Oh, and actually, I don't need to figure all this out. He's available to do some of this for me as well. Suddenly, I'm getting a much better understanding of what I need to do in order to sell my services, because I'm able to explain them using the right words. And that's something that AI really helps me with. But also people, coaches, talk to people who have helped me see some of this. And again, it's people whose content that I started following because it's like, oh, this makes sense. I see where they're coming from. They've connected with me. They've built that trust. And so I know to go to them for information. That's where you get this hugely powerful intersection of creators, AI, and trust. The best creators build a ton of trust in their audience. And it's what I'm focusing on doing. And it's why I will sit and talk with people for an hour or two just for fun. Talk through the ideas that I'm sharing in my content, what I write about. because this is so important for creators to see. I want creators to have an easier life. I want them to be able to scale their businesses more, and I want them to do it in a human-centric way that keeps the heart and soul in the stuff that they're creating. It's not about overtaking the human creators. It's about augmenting what human creators are capable of. That's the future I believe in. That's the future I'm building for myself, and that's the future I want to help creators build for themselves. It's taking time, but I'm getting there step by step, because it's all you can do. It's how you make it through. So the answer is yes. It's possible to write an 18-page white paper in 30 minutes. But that's not the end of the journey, because it's all about getting things to where it needs to go faster. And when you start shortening the step from 0 to 1, you greatly shorten the distance from 1 to n. And that's what it's all about. That's where AI can really come in and make that powerful difference in your creative process. That's it for today. Thanks for watching. Hope you learned something, and I'll see you in the next video.